yeah, it was a big step for me. It was, I loved being there, um, doing the challenges and stuff. It was difficult, but in the end, I think it's helped make me a better person for who I want to be.
Welcome back to another episode of the Wellness Dojo podcast. I'm your host, Craik, and I'm excited for today's episode. I'm always excited for these episodes, but today in particular, we're talking about the New Year Ninja Retreat. Now, it's just over 1 month since we wrapped up the New Year Ninja Retreat in January 2023, and I wanted to reach out to people and hear their feedback, hear about what their experiences were, and man, was I impressed. There were some very, very powerful experiences that were had, and I'm excited to share some of those people's experiences. It really does go to show what is possible when you do tap into and explore creating your purpose and truly understanding your purpose, and then aligning your purpose with your actions, diving into what stories have we been telling ourselves? What stories do we need to change in order to start to achieve what we actually want to achieve in life? It was really, really powerful weekend. So I'm excited to share some of the responses, some of the experiences that people had had. We're going to be starting off with Lisa. Now, Lisa actually was one of the presenters at the event. She presented on the Friday, presenting about mastery and the importance of mastery when working to achieve your goals, which was just the perfect kickoff to our event. And so, without further ado, let's bring Lisa in. All right, I'm welcoming in Lisa Garrow. Lisa, you participated in the New Year Ninja Retreat, but also you presented on the Friday evening for us, which was fantastic. You presented on kind of the power of mastery with goal setting, which was super, super impactful and just such a great addition to the retreat. But like I said, then you also participated in the rest of the weekend as well, which was so special to have you there. First of all, welcome to the podcast and thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Fun to be here.
Yeah, and what a fun weekend it was,
Hmm.
connecting with you and connecting with other individuals. Um, I'm curious what your experience was presenting and then also participating.
Sure. I think one of the things, and we've already talked about this, but one of the really neat things was the energy right off the top. Like we hadn't even really met anyone. I came with my husband Tim, and we hadn't met anyone. We knew you, and just the energy in the room, and people so willing to lean in, and they were curious and excited, and so I just had that right off the bat. It just felt like there was just already a group of people that were not ready necessarily to just talk mastery on the Friday night, that they were willing to be curious and what were they going to get out of the weekend. So it was just, that was probably one of the most energizing things, was to come into the weekend and just feel like, we're with people that are just right there with us, and that we could be with them and be real with them as well.
Yeah, I think it really did enhance the experience for people just having this group of people that were so open to connecting and so open to kind of being vulnerable, but like we kind of talked about is like people who were willing to support, but then also willing to be supported was just huge,
Hmm.
right?
Exactly. Yeah, and specifically the session on the Friday was all about mastery, and I tried to take a little bit of a fun approach to that, where we did, and it was a bit of a joke the next day on the Saturday about what I call the 40-second build, but this is with popsicle sticks, and we were building log cabins, and how when we're actually trying to master something, that there are things that really fundamentally need to be in place for us to actually be able to master a skill, or if we're setting goals and for us to meet those goals, there are those things that we need to have in place. And trying to build something significant with, seconds on the clock, and you're trying to put it together and you don't have any template or no examples and no support and not enough time. That was really the point of that Friday night was to say, if we really want to set goals and if we want to master something, there's a real joy in mastery now that I'm learning in my later years. It's not just about all the great ideas out there, but let's dig deep and let's find a way to really feel great about what we're producing and about the way that we're showing up for life and in our relationships. So mastery, I think, just it might sound kind of daunting, but it's something that as we take the time and learn this skill and get people like you, supports around us that will really guide us,
Mm,
then it becomes exciting to see what we're able to master.
yeah. And I couldn't have planned a more perfect kind of setup session for the rest of the weekend as we start off talking about mastering, and then we go into Saturday where we're essentially trying to master setting goals. Like, how do we actually set goals with intention, with purpose, and become a master of goal setting so that you can actually set yourself up to follow through on those goals. I'm curious if you had any major takeaways from the rest of the weekend, the Saturday in particular.
Yeah, and again, it was really special to have the time with my husband there. So we were both diving in. We weren't leading. We were really appreciative of being able to be there as a couple. What was really interesting for me and something that I took away and I'm still processing and figuring out how does that fit in my life is the fact that I'm a very playful person, but I'm also very driven to produce. I My business is a playful brand and I love to have fun. I also love to work with excellence. I love to set goals and help my clients as they're planning events set goals. So one thing that was really when you were doing the why exercise, like really getting deep into really why is that important to you? Okay, then why is that important to you? And we went, I think, 5 levels deep, something like that. And what had started out as I really want my clients to feel inspired and that they can lean in and they can create and they can see results in their work to really that being part of my motivation is that I love to play. I love to express myself. I love to put ideas on paper and see things fulfilled. And how, whenever we're doing something, there is a deeper why. And so that has allowed me to shift my story a bit in my personal life as well. That where can I add more play in my life, in even my work, and guilt free time where I can have fitness as a goal, or I can meet new people and just be playful in that. It doesn't have to result in anything major. So it's interesting that the session I did was about mastery, and then as we moved into goal setting the next day, that it actually became about me letting go, and that the goal is about learning how to build that into my life where I can have more time to play and be healthy and work out and be with my husband and all of those things that really add, I think, that big essence to life that makes it fun.
Yeah. Well, that's some powerful takeaway.
Yeah, huge for me. Yeah, it's awesome. Also it's not just like huge, oh, that's such a monumental thing to do. It actually feels like, really, I get to play? Well, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it creates a little bit of fun around the experience walking away from the retreat as well, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, it was a fantastic weekend.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Again, I appreciate you being there. And I know I felt a little bit of pressure having you there as somebody who helps with planning and that type of thing through your company as well. So if there's anybody out there who's looking for support in planning their events or anything like that, make sure you reach out to Lisa with Candy Consulting. Um, but it was so fun to have you there. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you coming on to share some of your insights and takeaways as well.
Well, thanks, Kyle. And I would say ditto too, because when I'm teaching about mastery on the Friday night, I'm like I'm teaching with the master in the room. So so yeah, awesome that we've had this chance to collaborate. Thanks so much. And thanks for this conversation too. Fun.
Man, I loved hearing Lisa's feedback. It was so fun to collaborate with Lisa. Thanks again, Lisa, for doing that. And next I'm gonna bring in Sandra. Now, Sandra is just an incredible human being. She's somebody that I've actually known for quite a while in my life, and just so impressed, not just with Sandra, with who she is and the type of person that she is, but with her ability to jump into this and really explore. And you'll hear in just a moment the transformation that she had with even just with the goals that she walked into at the event was just super, super powerful. So without further ado, let's welcome Sandra in. Okay, I'm here with Sandra, who participated in the New Year Ninja retreat. Um, First of all, how you doing today, Sandra?
I'm good, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. It was a powerful weekend. I felt it from everybody else, just in terms of energy. I just felt this powerful energy in the room, especially on the Saturday as we're diving deep into kind of our whys, our stories, and those types of things. I'm curious what your experience was.
Mm. Well, you've given us some homework to do before the weekend, and I thought, put in a lot of great thought and come up with a good theme for us to use, for me to use for my weekend. And it wasn't until we actually got there that I found that what I thought was a good why actually wasn't what was troubling me the most. And I ended up setting a goal in a totally different, I mean, it was related, I guess, a little bit. They were, my goal was living with intention. And we struck a note, I think, on something totally different that was more impactful to me personally.
Yeah, that was, in my opinion, a really cool thing to see of coming in with this idea of kind of where we need to work on in our life, and then going through some of these exercises and realizing that maybe it was a completely different area of life. Same kind of theme, but different area of life. And, we did this thing called the Wellness Wheel, which was where we highlight different areas of our lives and kind of rate them. And that was interesting because even as people started to discuss more, those started to change where you started to realize like, oh, maybe this area of my life actually I would rate higher or lower. Did you find that as well, that you were just like really changing as you talk to people?
That's absolutely what happened. I'd set my wheel of what I thought I needed to work on, and then after we talked to people, and um, I went back and I looked at my wheel, and you had us write down 3 goals. And when I got to my first goal was the one that I had chosen for my theme, and when I got to my second wheel, it was almost a flippant answer, um, just to have something to write down. And when you came around and asked about my goals, I I read off my first one. I was so proud of it. And then I read my second one and I absolutely choked up. And you said, aha, I think that's the one we need to work on.
Yeah. And then the rest of the weekend just became centered around that goal.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I was totally blindsided by it. I thought I was more in control than I actually am. And I found that I had some work to do.
Yeah. Did you find like being vulnerable like that? Because this is something that I heard from a few people coming into the retreat that were, a little bit scared of going in, and because they knew we were going to be digging a little bit deep and trying to sort through some stuff. Was that scary for you also to go into that?
Absolutely. It was very uncomfortable for me. It's not, I think we've shared before, it's not something that I share my experience with a lot of people. I mean, some people look in and see, what our situation is, but it's not something that I delve into, and it's something that I thought I was handling well. I'm not.
Yeah. No, you did great. You did some really amazing work. Like we were talking about it afterwards, and I told you, I said it's a strength to be able to dig in, to be able to break down a little bit. That really comes out of strength, right? Um, what would be like 2 to 3 main takeaways, maybe just from the whole weekend as just in general?
Well, I think a little self-discovery that that breaking down is kind of sometimes a prerequisite to breaking through.
Mm,
And I feel like that's what I did. Um, another takeaway for me was self-taught, setting myself a new script, something tangible that I can tell myself, um, to write my new story, that I can be more fulfilled, happier, not just for myself, but for my family and everyone that I love. And third takeaway is I got some work to do, not just, it wasn't a one day fix all. It's something that I'll have to build on, something that I'll have to work on every day. Uh, Maybe doing some of those uh, good self-taught, self-acclamations, reminding myself what I'm good at. We talked about that there's no such thing as perfection, and I'm not going to be perfect, but there's some things that I can be excellent at. So I'm going to strive for excellence and leave perfection in God's wheelhouse.
I love it. It's very well said. Very well said. Last question for you, okay, Sandra. I'm just curious how life changed from, walking into the retreat to walking out of the retreat. Did life change? And if so, how did you feel different leaving the retreat?
I was nervous coming in. I'm a homebody. I like being comfortable, but it was comfortable being uncomfortable. You made it comfortable to be uncomfortable. And the group that we were with were very open and very supportive. And we buoyed each other up, I think. It was nice to break off and talk and know that everybody's got their bag of rocks they have to carry. Mine just happened to look a little different, but it doesn't mean that I'm any less for it. I went away feeling like that bag of rocks might have been a little bit lighter, that I'm not in this by myself. I don't have to tuck it away.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm so proud of you. It is such great work. Like I said, you really dug deep. You really embraced self-exploration, which is what the whole thing was about, right? It's just exploring deep within yourself and starting to change some of those stories that we've been living by to start to live more conducive to the way that we want to live, right? So thank you for that. You made the experience amazing.
Thank you very much.
Wow, I mean, as you can see, like I mentioned, Sandra just had such an incredible takeaway, such an incredible experience and a deep and meaningful experience. So happy for that. And next, I want to bring in Todd. Now, Todd is somebody who his experience was unique, as you'll hear, but he really brought in this idea of like togetherness with the group, and that was something that was really, really cool. This idea, you'll hear him talk a little bit about this feeling of lone wolf and how the importance of not being a lone wolf, the importance of leaning on each other, and that really made the experience great. And with that being said, let's dive in and hear a little bit more from Todd. All right. We're now joined by Todd. Todd was another participant at the New Year Ninja Retreat. Todd, first of all, welcome to the Wellness Dojo podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Appreciate it. Um, Really cool thing with you, Todd, is you were joined by your son. You guys were the only kind of father-son duo that came in, which was such a cool experience. How did you find the retreat?
it was a growth experience for sure, something I probably wouldn't have done on my own. So having the opportunity to do something like this with my son, and explore, some growth and wellness things and some challenges are on our end, both individually and as a father son, was very rewarding at the end of it. So a good experience overall, and lots of information, um, and strategies for us to build on moving forward as we explore our own wellnesses and also our own relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, I say a cool thing because so many people who were at the retreat, you walk away from it and you're kind of like, no, I got to go and like tell my spouse about what I learned and all the thing. You had the ability to kind of walk away and actually have somebody with you to be like, let's break this down and that type of thing. I'm curious what some of your top takeaways from the retreat was as you guys kind of walked away together.
Well, I think exploring what's working in our lives and what where we can be better, and kind of him looking at my wellness wheel exercise, as well as me looking at his, and being able to have the conversations around that. You know, relationships was one area where I need some improvement, going forward, and so to be able to explore that with him, and be able to talk about that going forward with other members of our family, and it just created that background, or that experience that we can reflect back on and say, hey, when we were in Banff at the retreat, we talked about this, or we explored this topic. How are you doing on that today? So I think overall it just created kind of that foundation that we can point to and say, hey, we were here, you're slipping. I can hold him accountable, he can hold me accountable, when we slip back into some of those old habits. So I think just that foundation, Kyle, I think, as we, always that continuous improvement, and to be able to focus back on that is probably the biggest takeaway for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that accountability piece is just so huge and something people are always bringing up is like, I just need more accountability. I just, need to find ways to stay accountable. And so cool again that you guys were able to kind of have that built-in accountability right from the beginning and then following through. Well, yeah, of course we built community there and we now have some people that we can kind of lean on or reach out to if we have to because we got pretty comfortable with each other throughout the weekend. A very cool thing to be able to have that instant accountability as you walked away from it. I bet.
For sure, and to be able to see, that some of your struggles are the similar struggles to other people,
Mm,
strangers. I knew absolutely no one else other than, yourself and my son going into the retreat. So to get to know some strangers and, you know, experience, their struggles or their vulnerability, and say, hey, you know what, I can relate or I can help, and this is what I've done in that situation, and them challenge you and you challenge them, what was definitely, another really good takeaway from that, to know, hey, I'm not the only one struggling in this particular area of my life, and or someone who used to struggle in it, and this is how they got through it, and some of the strategies that worked for them. So yeah, to come in and see that, you're not always that lone wolf, that there
mm,
are other people experiencing the same things, was very very helpful as well.
yeah. Yeah, it's you mentioned kind of lone wolf and um you were somebody who I was telling you afterwards I really saw as like a leader in the group of like really sparking some really intriguing conversations and really helping people really engage in that aspect. Was that something that kind of surprised you? Is your ability to kind of get in there and give some good feedback?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm in my mid 50s, so I've experienced a lot in my life. I've taken some one-on-one coaching with you, on the wellness side, and some professional coaching, through my employer as well. So I've been fortunate enough to participate in those kind of things and do some self-reflecting over the years and understand, where what my strengths and more importantly my weaknesses are. So I was, yeah, it was a little bit humbling for sure to hear that, that sort of feedback, and that people got some value out of my individual and group sessions. So it makes me feel feel pretty good that I was able to contribute positively to the group and people individually as well. So appreciate the
Yeah.
feedback on that. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, having those kind of leadership skills and training and stuff, it's all fantastic. It all really helps, but it still makes it, it's still difficult to go into something like this and want to open up and want to explore those things sometimes. So kudos to you for doing that. Um, one last question for you, Todd. What were some of your favorite things that we did? Like one or two things that stood out to you that were just your favorite things that we had done over the weekend?
The journaling, I think putting stuff on paper, working through that last exercise where you kind of wrote out your story. I forget what you called it there. It was one of the last exercises on
It's the
Saturday.
life script. I think you're talking about the life script. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think putting it down on paper so it's real,
Mm,
and having that script to refer back to, um, was a very, was very impactful and a very good exercise to kind of bring Saturday to a close and kind of everything to an end, and on that front. And then definitely a close second is the walk or the hike on Sunday morning, um, to be in the fresh air and the outdoors and just talk to new friends and people about whatever's on your mind, the stuff that happened on Saturday, after you've had a good night's sleep and been able to reflect a little bit and spend the 2 or 3 hours there and just kind of chew the fat and talk about, yeah, Saturday and some other questions and things, and was was great as well. And so those were probably my top two, Kyle, or definitely my top two.
awesome. Awesome. The life script, such a powerful tool, right? It's something that we can continue to use. It's a tool that we can continue to tweak, something that we can continue to use and just give us those reminders and really, like you said, kind of make that goal, make that mission really tangible and believable within your life. Because I think that's something that people struggle with a lot, right? Is yeah, I've got these things that I want, but it's hard to imagine that it's actually real, right? And I agree. Like one of my favorite things of the whole weekend was the walk, just getting people together, walking kind of in the wilderness in nature and just having an opportunity to just kind of like take a deep breath, catch our breath after a really um kind of powerful and maybe say intense weekend. So cool to hear that was your favorite thing as well, those things. So
Yeah,
awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to do this. Really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to hearing how your journey continues.
sounds good.
Now, as we continue to roll on through this episode, this next guest is truly special to me. It's so cool when your family buys in to what you're putting out there. It's so cool when you can create impact in the people that you love the most. And that is the case with this guest. This is my mom, Candace, who attended the retreat. She went all in on this retreat and talks a lot about her transformation, which was really just starting to focus more on herself. And that's something that's so important. This one's special to me. Let's bring in my mom, Candace. Okay, we are now joined by Candace, who was at the New Year Ninja Retreat. Now, Candace is a special guest. Candace is my mom, and I feel so lucky and blessed that, my parents and my family uh, support my dream and support my missions, but more importantly to me, that you guys actually are able take part and benefit and find value in some of these things that I do. And that to me is just something that's so special that you actually buy into it and you actually take part and hopefully are getting some value from it. So first of all, welcome to the show, Mom.
Glad to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about the retreat. What was your experience at the retreat like?
With going through the retreat, I found that for myself, I was able to make myself a little bit more vulnerable than I normally am. As you know, I'm kind of I don't want to say standoffish, but I have guards up and I have all through my life, whether it be with my immediate family or, my things my parents have taught me and stuff like that. It's kind of like, keep your guard up. Um, when I started working and stuff, my father's motto was, you don't need friends at work, you have friends at home. Just go and do your job, that sort of thing. So, you know, and that's where guards get built, right from a young age. So with coming to the retreat, I had to open myself up. I had to become more vulnerable. I had to maybe talk about things that I didn't really want to talk about, but you're kind of, you remember you're there for a reason, and if you don't work that reason, then why be there?
Mm. Yeah, it's almost like you've made this commitment to be there and to take part, and so you don't want to kind of not take part in a way.
Yeah, exactly. you know um I think with the retreat, because I knew a few people that I already had a relationship with, um on one hand it made it a little bit harder because you've been friends for years. A lot of these people I met through your boot camps and stuff, and so you're portraying yourself as whatever it is that they see, kind of thing. And now you've got yourself in this position where, oh my god, they're gonna find out things about me that they never knew before, or this kind of thing. So yeah, it was a big step for me. It was I loved being there, um doing the challenges and stuff. It was difficult, but in the end, I think it's helped make me a better person for who I want to be.
Mm. And what does that mean? Like, how did it make you a better person? How did you walk away different from the retreat?
Well, I realized that when you're growing up through life, and when you're working, you start a new job and you move on to another job, and that sort of thing, you become who people expect you to be in whatever it is you're doing. And for me, it helped open my eyes that I don't have to do that. I can just be who I am, and people will still like me. I don't have to portray this tough macho type. I don't even know what to call it. This, you can be who you want to be, and people will still accept you for who you are.
Mm.
A lot of people portray me as, oh, you don't want to mess with her, kind of thing. And that has partly been my own fault, because that's, I figured, well, that's what people want to see. That's what people want, this sort of thing. Whereas I know deep down that's not who I want to be. I don't want to be that person where they're like, oh God, you know, you don't want to deal with her because she's going to lose it on you, kind of thing, right? But there's a softer side and whatnot. And this has just helped me realize that it's okay. It's okay to be who you want to be without the acceptance of others.
Mm. It's powerful. Some powerful takeaways there.
It was a long journey.
Yeah. Yeah, and like what was that experience like opening up to people? Like you mentioned it was difficult. Um, what were some of the benefits maybe that you found through opening up with like at the retreat, and was it was it different than what you expected it would be?
um, I think it was I think it was easier than I expected it to be. I'm a very inward person. I I do speak my mind when my mind needs to be spoken, but when put on a spot and you're talking about yourself, and I'm great at giving advice and not so great at taking my own advice. And I think that when I opened up, as difficult as it was, there was almost like a weight lifted from my shoulders. Okay, so now it's out there. This is, this is how I'm feeling. This is, I don't want to be 12 different people with 12 different people. I want to be one person for everybody. And to open that up and say it out loud, it really makes you realize that, that this is true. This is happening. And to bring yourself to that point where you can open up, it's a tough situation. You're sitting in a room with a bunch of people, some some you don't know, and you're going to spill your guts, and you're going to become vulnerable. There's going to be tears, there's going to be laughter, and you need to be able to accept it for what it is and know that you're only doing it to move forward.
Hmm. Do you view vulnerability differently now versus when you walked into it?
I think to a certain point I do. Like I said, it's a long journey, right? Things don't happen overnight. I'm able to make better conversations with people, um, more heartfelt than um, being defensive. If
Mm.
somebody approaches me about something now, I kind of just like, take a few breaths and think about this before you actually answer, instead of just putting those defenses up and protecting yourself. Let
Yeah.
yourself be vulnerable. Let yourself cry if it's a subject that you're really feeling bad about or whatever. It's okay to cry in front of people. It's okay to laugh in front of people. you know um don't make light of what you're going through, I guess, is one of the things that I've taken away from it.
Mm. What would you say? We did a lot during the retreat. It was
We
a
did.
3-day immersive experience. What would you say was your absolute favorite part of the whole weekend, the whole experience?
I think my favorite part, is like I said before, I'm very inward. So I think my favorite part of the whole thing was, as hard as it was talking to different people that I didn't know. Getting their perspective on things that, there's two sides to look at something, right? You can look at it negatively or positively, or you know um there was a conversation had about, somebody looking after their parents, and how, the parent side was, I don't want to be a burden, but the child side was, I want to help. You've looked after me for so long. And it's being able to understand that there are the two sides. you know um there's the side that is compassionate, and and then there's the gruff side where, no, I don't want you helping me, kind of thing, right? And I think that the biggest thing that I really enjoyed from there was forcing myself to be able to deal with these things, to be able to look at it from two different sides. But I think that conversation was, that and the plateau thing, like the plateau thing, that was just amazing. Like, because I'm 62 years old, and for 62 years, I've always thought a plateau is a bad thing. A plateau was, oh my God, I'm stuck in something, whether it be weight loss, whether it be um, whatever, emotionally. And it's not a stuck, and it's having that explained to me was a real eye opener. And I think that has helped me get to where I am and on the track to where I want to be, because you look at it from a different aspect.
Yeah, that perspective shifting is such a powerful thing when you really do open your mind to it, right?
Yeah, yeah. But like, for years and years, especially back in the old, I want to say olden days, but I'm not that old. But back in the days when you're being raised by somebody, by your parents or whatever, and this might have even spilled into you in Chelsea. It's it's what you're taught, so you've grown up with this for years and years and years, and to be able to open your eyes and look at something from a different point of view is incredible. It's an incredible feeling, and it just lightens you, like, in your mind so much.
Yeah, people think it's a scary thing, and it is a little bit to like try and imagine like, what if I've been wrong about this, and what if there is another way to look at it? But when you do open your mind up to it, and when you do start to see things differently, it's actually very much a freeing thing to recognize that, I've been wrong about so much, and there's so much that I actually don't know. That can be a very freeing and a very powerful thing. And also, like, to credit to what you just said, like, we have to take ownership in our lives. Like you said, like, yeah, maybe some of it's passed down. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm probably passing things down to my kids as well that is probably not going to be conducive to some of their goals as they grow older. But I'm trying to teach them the responsibility the same way that you guys taught me on how that's my like I have to take ownership for those perspectives and do the work to open my mind up to shift them, right? So,
Well, yeah, we even have to do that now, even though you guys are all grown up.
yeah.
We still have to, maybe you're doing something that I don't agree with, kind of thing. But now I can look at it on two sides. It's not just the one side where I was raised and this was my thought pattern, kind of thing. But with going through this, the weekend that we went through, it's really opened my eyes onto how, you know, maybe, just maybe, small amount, I was wrong, kind of thing, right? And that's a big step for parents to accept, or even just people, with other people. I've been in situations with friends and stuff, and I'm like, so bullheaded. But now I can sit back and I can go, well, wait a minute, let's look at this a different way.
Mm,
Let's look at it, try to look at it from their perspective and what they're going through instead of what I went through and how it would have related to what I was going through, at that time in my life, kind of thing, right? But yeah, it has really been a really great eye opener for me.
awesome.
And that's not
Well,
easy to say.
yeah, yeah, I know. I know. Well, this is all really great to hear. Like I said, I'm so glad that you were able to come and take part and willing to come and take part. It's well, my goal is to create an impact on so many people. It's so special to be able to play a role in impacting the people that you love the most in your world. So, um, just super special to have had you as a part of it,
Thank you.
and thanks for coming on the podcast as well to talk a little bit about it. I appreciate it.
Anytime, anytime.
Now, again, how cool to be able to bring my mom to an event like this and to actually help create an impact in her life the way that she did for me for so many years. That one was truly, truly special for me. So thanks, Mom, for coming. Thanks for being a part of the event, and thanks for just diving both feet in and just jumping in and being vulnerable. Um, our next guest that I'm bringing in is somebody who also dove in and maybe wasn't as open to being vulnerable at the very beginning, but definitely started to feel that impact and the power of vulnerability and what that can do for you. I'd like to welcome in our next guest, Elaine. We are joined now by Elaine, who took part in the New Year Ninja Retreat. How are you doing today?
Really good, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Um, you had some real good takeaways, I know, from talking to you with the retreat. I'm curious though, from your words, as it was a powerful weekend for me, what the experience was for you.
It was a great experience right from the very beginning, right from the get-go. There were some great people there, very open, very honest, very safe space. So that was really great. A lot of laughing, a few tears, but mostly a lot of laughing and a
Yeah.
lot of information that I got to bring home and contemplate again. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. And that's such a big part of the retreat too, is that, I kind of mentioned that off the top at the retreat was, we're gonna learn some things today. We're gonna explore some things today, but today's only the beginning, right? That self-exploration and stuff, it's gonna continue on afterwards. And it sounds like that's been the case for you as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I came home and I started thinking right away, okay, what am I going to do? And what am I going to get rid of? So
Ah, interesting. I like that. All right. What am I gonna create and what am I gonna kind of like let go of? Yeah,
exactly.
I
Yes, my
love that.
letting go.
Yes. Yeah, we talked about that language of like changing kind of how we think about things. That's so important. I love that you said to that it felt safe. That's something that I've been hearing from people also coming out of the retreat, and that's something that's so important to me is that you create a space that feels safe because I think that's something that is missing in some areas of society as well. Like we want to be vulnerable, we want to do that, but we don't feel safe doing that. Is that something that you've recognized as well as just like when you have that safe space that it's easier to open up?
It's easier to open up, it's easier to change.
Mm.
It's easier to drop your guard, I guess. We all have that persona that we show to everybody else. And in order to make change in yourself, you've got to allow yourself to be vulnerable and to change. And it's not a space that a lot of people can find outside in the real world, as opposed to in a retreat where you've got a certain amount of people that are all doing the exact same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you're so right. It does feel like you're kind of in this different world when you're doing something like that, and it can be difficult to walk away from it and keep that connection to those things that you explored, right?
Absolutely. I think there's one person I'm probably going to try and reach out to because we connected very much there. And she was extremely safe to speak to. So, yeah,
Awesome. I love
friendships,
that.
right?
Friendships gained. That's what it's all about, connection, right? Um, what was your favorite part of the whole experience? It was a 3-day retreat. I'm curious what your favorite part of it was.
Do you know what I really liked? Oh dear. The
Dr. Riley.
Dr. Riley? Yes.
Yeah.
He was very light, very informative, some very deep issues, but I think I was on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
I was taking it all in. It was really nice to hear somebody come at you in a very fun way.
Yeah, Dr. Riley's amazing. He's super intelligent. He's extremely compassionate. He's an amazing listener, but as you witnessed, he's also a really great speaker.
Yeah,
Um, so I'm so glad that you enjoyed that. That I also enjoyed it. I was sitting there, I was also like on the edge of my seat, just so engaged with it. He was talking about plateaus and how we approach them, how we rethink them. And yeah, just a really fascinating talk there. One other question that I want to ask you, Elaine, is just 2 to 3 major takeaways that you had from the retreat. What were kind of the biggest things that you took away from it? Just general takeaways.
um, that I need to be a different type of listener. That was probably my major one that we talked about. That it's okay to change your goals because you go in with one goal and then realize that that's really not the goal that you're coming in with. And that it's okay to get a little teary-eyed.
I love it. I love it. And so important to that first note is like kind of an unexpected. I don't think a lot of people would expect that answer of like, I learned that I need to, change the way that I listen, right? Because we broke out a lot and shared with each other. And I challenged you guys to really challenge each other on things like what your goals are, what your purpose is. Um, and it's interesting to hear that that was one of your takeaways as well, was just realizing that well, it's hard to be vulnerable and sometimes it's hard to talk about things and share your stuff. It's also sometimes hard to be an active listener and it's a little bit uncomfortable to do the prompting as well, right?
Yes, very much so.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you took part and I'm excited for your journey. I'm excited to see and hear where you go from here. Any final thoughts on the retreat?
Well, when's next year's?
To be announced soon. I'm going to be
and I
announcing soon. We'll
and I'm
definitely
pretty
be
sure
doing a
it's not in
secondary one.
Hawaii, so
Yeah. No, you'll definitely be on the list for people that I reach out to first because yeah, I'm just excited to continue seeing that transformation.
Excellent. Thank you so much for it.
Awesome. Thank you, and thank you for joining on the show. Well, it's always amazing to sit down and chat with Elaine. She's just such a fun person to be around, such a fun personality, and really did add so much value to the group at the event. The next guest that I want to bring in is Tim. Now, really cool thing about Tim was he really showed the power that can be with shifting the mind, like that powerful shift that your mind can take. And he does so describing even a dream that he had following the retreat. That was really, really cool. Um, but let's pass it off to Tim to and welcome Tim in to tell you a little bit more about that. We are joined now by Tim. Tim, welcome to the Wellness Dojo podcast.
Thank you. Pleasure to be
Uh,
here.
it's a pleasure to have you here. It was such a pleasure to have you at the New Year Ninja retreat as well. Can you tell me a little bit about just like what your overall experience was at the retreat?
It was insightful. That's a very good way of putting it. And I was in a room of other people who were wanting to gain insight into their lives and get some direction. And so I felt that I gained that insight and I was supported through that journey throughout the day, which was really good.
That is awesome. What did you have a favorite part of the retreat? Like we were there for 3 days. We did a lot. Was there one favorite thing that stands out to you that you did?
The important day for me was the day that we were all together, and I guess it was a workshop in effect. And you introduced us to the Wheel of Wellness, which allowed us to hone in on the areas in our lives where we think we need improvement. And that's where this became very insightful in that I came up with two areas, and it was physical and spiritual. And that very much ties into it in the end. Of course, those were the two areas, but sometimes you just have to put it down on paper to make yourself aware that those are the areas. And it actually helped me that with continuing to ask the question why you want to achieve something, that gets down to what is your purpose. That was very powerful as well, because I didn't just come up with a very high level answer. I had to dig deeper into myself and keep asking me the questions. So those two pieces were very important, and they helped me leave the weekend with a purpose, and and I guess more of a focus.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you mentioned about just like really digging deep, really getting to the core, because that's the thing is oftentimes we think we know what we want, and we probably do, but we don't fully understand it. I don't know how many times I had people who were like, I came in with this goal and it completely changed by the end of it because I realized that, that thing is actually not important to me, but it's this thing over here that's so important to me. And you mentioned the Wheel of Wellness, right? How many times did you hear people at the retreat who were like, oh, I thought it was this area of my life that needed improving, but when I really look at it, it's actually over here that could use the most improvement.
Absolutely, yeah. And what was really cool for my wife Lisa and I is we both have the two areas of improvement. We had that in common. We didn't necessarily know that about each other, but yeah,
So cool.
but it is, and it helps us both encourage one another as we move forward.
Yeah. Another super cool thing that I heard from you was you were telling me about a dream that you had the night It was the night of the workshop day, right?
It was the Sunday night.
The Sunday night. Oh, okay. So after the
Uh,
whole retreat was complete. Okay. Are you okay telling us a little bit about what that dream was?
Absolutely. In my past, I've run one marathon over 10 years ago. I always wanted to run another one. We'll see if that happens. But what was really cool, I don't typically dream about positive things. I typically dream about where, in effect, I'm running on ice. I'm trying to achieve something and I just can't get there. I just
Mm.
can't get there. This dream was, we had just finished running half a marathon. And I just asked the other folks that I was running with, did we just finish half the marathon? We only have half left. And they said, yeah, we're halfway there. And I couldn't believe it because I felt so good. And I knew that I could achieve the next half of this marathon. It was going to be an easily achievable and successful marathon. And I woke up with this very positive feeling, which is unusual for me in terms of dreaming. So that
Oh,
was very.
man, that is so cool. It's so cool to hear that. Like the impact that your mindset shifted to this this positive and just out looking towards this finish line and feeling like, really? That's all the struggle that I had to go through to get halfway? And I only have this. Oh, I just love that. So thanks for sharing that story. It was really, really great vision for you to walk away with.
Yeah. And thank you for helping me get there.
Of course, of course. Well, Tim, I'm so excited for you to see that finish line, for you to cross that finish line, and then approach the next thing. I'm just so excited for your journey. So, thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing a little bit about your experience at the retreat. And I'd be excited to have you at the next one.
Thanks so much.
What a cool conversation that was, and just such a cool guy. Another really cool person that was at the retreat. I love this person so much. Ramona. Now, as you'll hear, Ramona also had a very powerful experience, like everybody else who was at the event. Um, Ramona really walked in open to perspective, which I love. She opened to the ability to shift perspective and just a wide open mind. A total growth mindset. And she walked away and had gained so much from the experience as well. I'm excited to share a little bit more about Ramona's journey through the retreat. So without further ado, let's bring in Ramona. Okay, I am joined now by Ramona. Ramona was a participant at our New Year Ninja retreat. Ramona, first of all, welcome to the podcast. um, the retreat was a really special weekend. It was a deep dive, immersive, kind of self-discovery, self-care weekend. I'm curious, what was your experience with the weekend, just in general?
So in general, it was time well spent. I really appreciated the fun exercise that we did as a group after dinner, the first night that we all met. And the session itself on the Saturday was a full day, but it was a full genuine day. And that's what I liked about it, was the honesty and the conversations that we all had with each other. So it was a perfect size, actually. It wasn't too big to be an anonymous person who's just, hearing some of the answers and, maybe I implement something. It was really well worth it.
Yeah, there's people, I think everybody who is involved really took that opportunity to go deep with each other, to challenge each other, to support each other and offer suggestions. I really felt a strong connection, no matter who you were talking to. It felt like people were really connecting.
Yes. Yeah. I really
Awesome.
liked that with a couple of the persons that I had spoken to,
Mm.
because I was able to challenge them and they were able to give me suggestions as well. So yeah, it was really good.
Do you feel like you walked away with like new genuine connections that you could actually feel supported with outside of the retreat?
Absolutely, yes.
Mm.
I there was a connection with the people, not just for that day, but the next day too, when we all did our walk and being open and having conversation with each other. And so there is not one single person in that group that didn't talk to someone else in that group. No one was left out. Everyone was supported. And I feel like if I were to contact, the people that I was sitting with or having conversation with, that that they would be my cheerleader and I would be theirs.
Yeah, and how amazing a feeling that is to like walk into something probably nervous, a little bit unsure, and to walk away just feeling like I've gained friends, I've gained connections, and more importantly, I've gained support and community. Like that's something that's just, I think, so huge in our society right now too, is just building that community.
Yes. Yeah, that was very, very helpful that we gelled the way we did. And I think on top of that too, we all left with a little bit of our sense of purpose and
Mm,
our designs on what it is that we want to do next.
yeah, that's fantastic. What would you say would be your absolute favorite thing that we did in the entire weekend?
Oh gosh, there were so many things. And the one exercise that we did that was looking at a year from now and what do we hear, what do we feel, what do we see. That was a really good exercise, and it really helped me feel like, wow, if I set a goal, now I have a year from now and I have to face these same people who I've just made a connection with. So I have to step up and, look at my goal more seriously and implement what it is that I want to do. But
Mm.
I liked how we were seeing and hearing and feeling what accomplishing that goal would be like. So that was a really good exercise. I really enjoyed that one.
I'm so glad you enjoyed that. It's so important to take those goals and make them tangible, right? Like really recognize like, yeah, actually like I want to feel what this goal feels like. I want to see what achieving this goal looks like and hear what it sounds like. And when you do that, did you find that it just makes it feel a little bit more real, like a little bit more achievable?
Definitely, it felt
Mm,
achievable and it really felt real. Like I didn't come with just some, phony baloney idea of, oh, well, maybe I'll do this. It was very tangible by the time we finished our day on Saturday. And
awesome.
I think that there was a couple of people that had mentioned the same thing, that we were excited to
Mm.
get home and get started with the work that we know that we need to do.
Oh, that's such an important thing. I'm so happy to hear that too. It's like walking away from it was an exciting experience as well. That's so important,
Yes.
I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you walk away with the same goal that you walked in with, or did it change?
It definitely changed.
Okay.
I came in probably with an idea of, some nifty fitness idea. And I left with a couple of very direct ideas of what I wanted to do. And they didn't really quite match exactly what I came in with. So yeah,
Awesome.
I had to be honest. And that was the best part, is because of the group being the size that it was, I was being very authentic and very honest with my goal and with what it is that I wanted to do. So
Yeah.
that was helpful.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Let's wrap this with what are your 2 to 3 biggest takeaways from the weekend?
I loved learning about plateaus. I got a huge lesson in learning about perspectives.
Mm,
And there was one exercise that we did where we were telling our story and then telling ourselves, what if that story is false? And that exercise in itself was really interesting. I really got a lot out of it because I got to understand maybe where some of the inner dialogue is coming from. And the plateaus, I don't know, that by far was, a highlight of the presentation for sure. So
Yeah. Yeah, that talk around plateaus was a perspective shift all on its own, right?
yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you were able to take part, and I'm so excited to hear kind of how your journey goes, see how your journey goes from here. I know you're excited about it. I'm very excited to hear and see how that goes for you. And hopefully see you at the next one and check in on kind of where you're at and set even bigger goals, right?
Definitely. I'm excited to see the group next year and to hear how we accomplished what it is that we set out to do this year. So
Awesome. Well, you can see why this event had me just beaming afterwards and just so revved up with the amount of impact. And that's just a handful of people who attended the event and shared their stories about it. I'm so excited to hear the journeys and follow up with people throughout the year. And I'm so excited for next year because of the success of this event, because of the impact that it created. I've already started planning. I'm excited to announce that next year's New Year Ninja Retreat will be January 19th to 21st, 2024. So excited. Already started planning. We're going to make it bigger, we're going to make it more impactful, and there will be more details to come. So I want to say thank you to everybody for sharing your stories. You know, it's not easy to go to a retreat like this and be vulnerable and open yourself up and really explore yourself in new ways. And it's also not easy to hop on a podcast and share about it either. So thank you to everybody who came on, who shared their experiences. And thank you to everybody else who even wasn't on the podcast today, but was there, that took part, that created impact for themselves, and in turn, within that community, created a strong impact for the people who were involved. Thank you to everybody for listening and watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.